Morning, everybody. I'm going to go into the continue the portion of Pashas Truma. Today is Tuesday. We continue the reading of the third part of the portion of the building of this beautiful Mishkan, which God asked the Jews to build in the desert through Moshe Rabbeinu. God's the architect, He's the designer, and the Jewish people built this beautiful Mishkan. It's very technical. I'm going to try to show it to you through pictures if I can, and hopefully we'll get the entire picture. We're only on chapter 25, verse number 31. Vasisa menorah zoftar. You shall make a menorah out of pure gold. Mikshata es a menorah. You shall make the menorah out of a piece of gold that will be hammered out. Yerecha v'kana giviel kaftoreha. Its base, its stem, its goblets, its knobs. Mimeno yihu. It needs to all come from that one piece of gold. So you need to take an entire piece of gold, entire block of gold, and from this gold you need to knock out a menorah. Now we're going to show you the Rashi's menorah, which the Rebbe, it's Rashi's menorah, it's the Rambam's menorah, and it's different from the menorahs that most people think the menorah looks like. And this is the menorah that Rashi says the menorah looked like. The one over here, not the one over here, but the one over here. This is what Rashi says and Rambam says the menorah looks like. It was not round hands. It was slanted hands into the base of the menorah. Now, the Torah is going to say a couple of different things that this menorah had. Besides having 6 branches, I'm going to show you the picture. Okay, these are the important things to know. There was goblets, givim, kaftorim, which are called knobs, and there was prachim, which is flowers. There were all these things. You're going to hear it a couple of times in the pasuk, because there were many. As I'm going to show you next picture, as you can see, for example, in this picture, you see that they had 1, 2, 3. Three on everything. It had 3 flowers. That's a I'm sorry. This is the I'm sorry. I am sorry. 1 second. That's the givim, the goblets. There was like 3 goblets and a kaftar, which is a knob, and then a flower. So it was a very intricate. It says that even Moshe Rabbeinu was very difficult, and the Medrash says actually this menorah was made by God. It just came out of the block of gold. It's an extremely difficult thing to create and make because it all needed to be made out of one piece of gold. And you'll see, as Rashi says. So let's go quickly into Rashi. I just showed you quickly what those are. Mikshatas is a menorah. So again, Rashi says it means you're not allowed to make it sections. It needs to take a block of gold, and the menorah was 72 inches high. It was close to 6 feet high. So this was a extremely big golden menorah. And you're not allowed to make it piece by piece. It needs to be all made out of one piece of gold. Miksha, Rashi says, it is an expression of drawing out. This was extremely different. And therefore, the Torah says, Rashi, Rashi says, the Torah says, Te'asa menorah shall be made. What does that mean? So Rashi brings down a medrash, me'aleha, by itself. Since Moshe found it difficult with it, figuring out how this form of the menorah, it was very difficult. How are you going to make out of one piece of gold all these flowers and knobs and goblets? How is that possible? In the middle of this thing, it's extremely difficult. So therefore, God said, cast the talent equivalent to 64 pounds of gold, into the fire, and it'll be made by itself. Te'asa menorah will be made. It'll be made by itself. So it came out. So that's what the Torah says. Te'asa will be made, because the menorah, in essence, was made. Rashi says by God Himself. Yerecha. What is the Yerecha? Rashi says that is Haregel Shalamata Asuri Kamin Teva. This was the bottom part of the menorah. So Rashi says the bottom part of this menorah had a Yerecha. This is the stand that the menorah stood upon. That is the Yerecha, the stand that the menorah stood upon. It was a block. It was. Rashi says it was like a box. It was like a box. And it had 3 legs. It had legs that came out from underneath it. Okay, so that's just the goblets, the cups made like cups of. That's an example. A goblet's like a glass cup. This also was like a cup made out of gold. Kaftarel is a knob. That's what Rashi says, like an apple, round as an apple. In the middle branch, the hands came out of the knobs. The hands came out of the knobs itself. It's very difficult to do. And flowers, that's the paracheha, is the flowers. Mimena yiu. It needs to all come out from it. Verse 32. Shisha kanim yetzi mitzideh. 6 branches come out of its sides. Shloisha kanim mitzideh echad, 3 from one side. Shloisha kanim mitzideh asher, and 3 from the other side. So here we have Rashi. See, Rashi says how the menorah is made. From here and there, in each direction, diagonally. Rashi does not say it was round. Diagonally. Ba'alachsoin. It was like in a diagonal. It was like in a. So that's what you see. No, Rashi does not agree with most people have a menorah, a round menorah. He says it was diagonally. So we have 2 great sages, Rashi and the Rambam openly says, he makes his own diagram to show the menorah. He shows it like I showed you. Says it was diagonally. So we get to the people, the world gets it from Titus, from the Roman ark. They get the menorah that was round, but it was not the real menorah, because the real menorah, as the Aron, was put away. So what they took to Rome was not the real menorah. Okay, so that's why it says that King Solomon made many more menorahs in the temple, but there was one menorah that they did the mitzvah with, and this is the menorah what I showed you was done the mitzvah with. So that they have in Rome on this arch is not the real menorah, and we just got stuck with it because we said, oh, it must have been that the menorah, but it's not true. Rashi and the Maimonides says the menorah was by Alachsim, came out diagonally. Verse 33. Shloisha Gevim, 3 decorated goblets on one branch, a knob, and a flower. And 3 decorated goblets on one branch, a knob, and a flower. See, this is what the Rashi is saying is the top part of the menorah. The top part of the menorah, where this is the top part of the menorah. I'm trying to show and tell. The top part of the menorah had three delicate goblets, a knob, and a flower, and that's the top of the menorah. Each of the 6 branches came out of the menorah. Verse 34. And on the menorah, on the stem, the menorah is called the middle rod, were 4 decorated goblets, Mishikodim, Kaftera Ferach, its knob, and its flower. So that says on the main stem of the menorah were 4 goblets, one producing each to below the branches, and 3 above that exit. The 3 branches extended towards its side. So that is a three. That's this right over here. The three, 1, 2, 3. That the 3 branches came out of this knob. Verse 35. The kafta tachashnei hakonim menu, a knob under 2 branches from it. The kafta and a knob tachashnei hakonim, and a knob. Every knob had 2 branches, and a knob under 2 branches from it, so that the 6 branches that come out of the menorah. Again, very complicated, but basically that's the way it was done. I'll show you the picture, what he means. That's what he just said. So each had a branch, and 3 branches over here. They're round. Not the way it's not the correct way, but this is the way it was. So that's the way it was. Each one had a knob, and each one from it came out the stems of the menorah. So we have, Rashi goes through the entire this Rashi is long Rashi. Rashi goes through the entire dimension of menorah. It's very hard to see, but over here you have it on the side. This is that Rashi, and he figures out how big the menorah was. So the menorah, it comes out to the conclusion, the menorah was 18 tvachim, which in our size is 72 inches. Altogether, from the top to the bottom, 72 inches, which is 6 feet tall. Around that, because again, it's not totally clear. I'm using the biggest number now. This book is using the biggest number, 24 inches for Amma, but you can go between 24 inches, as I said one time, 24 and 15, or 12 even. So it's a question how much an Amma is. It's not so clear exactly. Okay. Verse 36. Kaftareim v'kanaseim, so Rashi says their knobs and their branches. You get this book. It's a beautiful art scroll book. It's called the Mishkan. You'll be able to really get a beautiful understanding in how to make, how they built this Mishkan. Zav Torah, we have it out of pure gold. Vasisa is Nedaseh, you shall make its lamps 7. Ve'elas Nedaseh, ve'elav der panel, and you shall kindle it towards its face. What does it mean, towards its face? Towards its face means that this is the meaning, towards its face. If you can see this picture. So the middle lamp was straight. These 3 lamps face the middle one, and these 3 lamps candles face, no candles, the wicks. So these 3 wicks face the middle one. This is panel. The middle one is the face of the menorah. 3 of them face this way, and 3 of them face this way. And that's the meaning, towards its face, towards the face of the menorah. You see, the middle one is straight. The other 3 to the one side is facing the middle one, and the other 3 are facing the middle one. And that's the meaning of this verse. Rashi says that's the meaning of this verse. Its tongues, here we'll give you another picture. Its tongues, verse 38, its tongues, and its scoops, zav tahar, need to be pure gold. That's the tongues that you clean the menorah with, have to be pure gold. Verse 38. The tongues, the tongues that were made to take the wicks from the oil, to set them in a place and draw them in the mouth of the lamp. Since they are used, taking loichim, the wicks, with them, they are called malkachayim, takers. So they call these tongues takers. Machtoiseha, it scoops, the kind of a small cup in which the kohen would scoop the ashes that are in the lamp every morning, when the kohen cleaned the lamps, and the ashes and the wicks that are burned during the night, as were now extinguished. The word the word machta is the equivalent of the word, no French word, a little shovel, an ash pan, or like a scoop. So that's the word machteseha. Rashi, next pasuk, verse 39. Kikar zav ter yaseh. He shall make a talent of pure gold. As kala kelim, he'll make all these vessels out of a talent of pure gold. So Rashi gives in a calculation that is the weight along with its implement shall be nothing more than a talent, no less and no more. The talent used in the mundane matters was 60 mana, and the one used in the holy was a double that. That means 120 mana. The mana is a liter, which is a litera, with which the silver is weighed, and according to the weight used in cologne, which is equivalent to 100 gold pieces or 25 sela. Sela is equivalent to 4 gold pieces. This is equivalent to 60. So in the end, he said, he puts in brackets, and our weight, this was equivalent to 64 pounds. It weighed 64 pounds in gold. Figure out how much that value of that menorah is in the value of gold today. Verse 4. Now see and make according to the pattern in which you are shown on the mountain. So Rashi says, see here in the mountain the pattern that I have shown you. This informs us that Moshe had difficulty with the construction of menorah. It was very difficult. Until the Holy One, blessed be, showed him and made a menorah out of fire. Asha'ata Mara. So Rashi says that Asha'ata Mara, Targum renders that which are shown. So it's a concept that they had to be, again, Rashi just emphasizes the concept which they had to be shown it to be able to understand how to do this. It's a really very difficult thing to make. Okay, end of the menorah. We go now to another chapter, next chapter, which is chapter 26, verse number 1. Now, the Torah stops to the making of the vessels. We'll come back later to the making of the vessels, and he goes to the making of the Mishkan itself. And it starts with the roof of the Mishkan. And the Mishkan you shall make 10 curtains. Sheish Moshazar. It needs to be fine linen with chelas vargamon, purple and crimson wool. Talash shani, made out of again crimson wool. I'm sorry, that's talash shani. Kruvim maseh choshev. It needs to be cherubim design. Work of master weaver shall make them. It's extremely difficult to make these kind of things. There were very talented women who made these beautiful. This is the beautiful weaving of the skirt of the ceiling. This was that covered the entire Mishkan. Now there were three different coverings, as you'll soon see. So they had beautiful design on them, beautiful design. So they were each one, according to this calculation, he writes it with 28 feet each one, the length, and that's the way it looks. This was different work of master. So Rashi says, it's okay. This is the Mishkan. Is talking about the Mishkan, not talking about the Mishkan, the walls. It's talking about the roof and the covers of the walls. So these curtains covered the entire roof and the sides of the Mishkan. So they were twisted because this was the inside. There were three different layers. One was this layer of beautiful tapestry. The next was the izim, was the goat's hair that were made also into big pieces of cloth that covered the entire. And the next one was the tchashim, was the beautiful hides that you ultimately saw. So the only thing you saw inside was this beautiful tapestry. When you walked out inside, you saw on top of the roof this beautiful tapestry that the women weaved over here. It's lions. The women weaved into the ceiling, into this tapestry. So that's there were 4 kinds of materials together in each thread, 1 of linen and 3 of wool, and each thread was doubled 6 times. Thus 4 kinds of materials, when they were twisted together, yielded 24 strands to a thread. Keruvim, cherubim were drawn in them. Okay, they were cherubim. So we had the lions. Rashi says there were cherubim that in their weave, not with the embroidery, which is needlework, but with weaving on both sides. One faces from here on one side, and one faces there on the other side. A lion from this side, and an eagle from that side. As skilled riddle called theses in French are woven. So actually, they have a lion here in this picture. Actually, here is a better picture. He does the Rashi. You have a lion on this side and an eagle on the other side. So they did this beautiful weaving in a way that one side came one animal, the animal of a lion, and the other side came a eagle. Verse number 2. The length of one curtain was 28 cubits, and the width of each cubit was 4 cubits. The same measure for all of the areas. 28 cubits. Okay, so that was the covering. I'm just trying to find how much the exact 28 cubits is 56 feet. So it was fixed. I'm sorry, I made a mistake before. I said the Hebrew, I said the cubits. It was 56, at least 56 feet in the length. 56 feet in the length. And then you take 20 and 4 ames in the width. 4 ames is, again, according to this number, it's going to be 4 ames. 4 ames is 8 feet in the width. So 8 feet in the width by 56 feet in the length. Because again, I had to cover the whole Mishkan, and it went down, also cover the sides. So you actually didn't see the golden Mishkan outside because it was covered by these curtains. So you're gonna take, the Torah says, if each one was 56 feet in the length and 8 feet in the width, and you have 1, 2, 3, 4, you take 5, make it 5, attach 5 to 5. So there's ultimately be 10 panels. Together, 2 sets of 5. Each 5 panels is 40 feet wide and 56 feet long. Oh wow. Okay. So that's the meaning of these 2 verses. The length of the curtain shall be 28 cubits, and the width of the curtain shall be 4 cubits, the same measure for all the curtains. 5 of these curtains shall be joined as one, and 5 of the curtains shall be joined as another. So you have 2 sets of 5.
It's really amazing how big this thing was. Wow.
Well, you'll soon see how big the walls were and how big it's a pretty big Mishkan.
Yeah.
And you shall make loops, verse number 4, Vasisa lulois, and you shall make loops of blue wool at the edge of one curtain. So then you had to connect the two sets of 5, and that was the lulois with the loops. You shall make loops on both of the curtains, those sides, to be able to bring them together. to unite the two sets of 5 together and make them one. And that's the way with the hook. That's how they connected the 5 curtains and the 5 curtains to make it one long 10 sets of curtains. And that's the way it looked. It covered both sides, and that's what you saw in the Mishkan itself. That was the first cover of the Mishkan, which we are talking right now. So you shall make loops of wool, blue wool, on the edge of one curtain, and then the edge of the first set of 5, and you shall make at the other edge, the second set of 5 loops. Verse number 5, and then you shall make 50 loops on the 50 loops on the edge of the other curtain. You shall make 50 loops on the edge of the curtain in the second set. The loops shall correspond to one another. They need to be facing one another. So you'll be able to put the hook in between both of them to bring them together as one. And that's what Rashi basically explains. This long Rashi that's the how it was done, and that you'd be able to bring these two humongous curtains, 56 feet in the length, to be able to bring two humongous curtains together and unite them as one. Vasisa, verse number 6, you shall make 50 golden clasps. That's going to bring these two loops together. And you'll fasten the two curtains that are put together 5 by 5. You're gonna connect them all 10 together. And now with these claps, the Mishkan will become one. Very technical. But see, so then after that, after you made this, you're gonna do the exact same thing with this, the way the Mishkan looked on the outside. So it was mostly covered by these beautiful tapestries. It was covered. But then you need to make the next one. The next one was the covering of Izim. Izim, this was made out of the hair of goats. This was to protect it from rain. So you had to make the exact same thing what we just mentioned. And ultimately, this is what, so you didn't even see those tapestries from the outside, because this covered it totally. And the Torah goes to exact same thing, and we'll see in a second. This what you, so this, like, you see the underneath the covering of the Izim, you see the previous beautiful tapestries, but you couldn't see it from the outside. Verse number 7. You shall make curtains of goat hair for a tent over the Mishkan. You shall make 11 curtains, because this went a little bit, 11, that had 10 curtains. This went 11 curtains, because as you see this picture, it went a little bit further. Okay, this covered all the way to the bottom, and it went a little bit out. So we wanted to protect the Mishkan totally from the rain. So you see on this pictures, the first curtain didn't go all the way down. It went only like a little bit down. I went a lot down, but it didn't cover all the way to the bottom. These covered all the way to the Adonim, all the way to the sockets. So it covered totally the Mishkan. You could not see anything from the outside from these covers of goat's hair. And as you'll see, the Torah says you should make it longer. You'll see in the word next verse. The length of a curtain shall be 30 cubits. So it went over 2 cubits over the previous one. Same width, but longer. So it laid covering more over the Mishkan. But the width was the same, but instead of having 10, it had 11. That's why it covered a little bit more than the previous covers. Should be 30 cubits, and the width of the circuit should be 4 cubits. And over here, the same measure for the 11 curtains. The previous had 10. The goat to here had 11. So it was longer by 2 cubits, and it was longer by it was longer this way by 2 cubits, and it was longer this way by an extra curtain. The same thing the Torah says, verse number 9. You take 5 of those 5 sections, you put it together. And then 6 of the other sections, put it together. And you shall fold the 6th curtain from the front, so it goes a little bit over on the front, and it goes a little bit over on the back. So that's what this picture. You see this picture. In the front, it covered the top. It went over the other curtains. So you needed to have extended a little bit in the front and a little bit more in the back, and that's why you added an extra 4 amas. So it went 2 amas more, like 24 inches bigger in the front, covered totally the front, and it went 24 inches a little bit more in the back. Verse number 10. Again, the same thing. We'll bring the 2 sections together. Torah says the 6 and the 5, we're bringing them together to make them one, the same way like they did it before. Make 50 loops. On the edge of one curtain, whichever section, the 5 or the 6. And then 50 loops on the other curtain, the other section group. Then you make 50 loops, 50 clasps, copper. You connected the 2 loops together, and now you have both of these sections, one that had 5 parts, the other that had 6 parts. You bring them together, now they have all 11 parts and become one. Now you have extra on this curtain had extra on all sides. So that's what the Torah says. And the overhang axis of the curtain of the tent, half of the extra curtain shall hang over the rear of the Mishkan. So that is this concept, which we showed you. It went all the way down and it hung a little bit over, covered the bottom of the Mishkan. Okay? So that's the way it was done. Shtei amas, 2 amas, which we're going to the largest number, 24 inches. So it went 24 inches on both sides, it covered. Verse number 13. And then you have an extra amma, right? Because the other one was 28 amas in its length, but over the Mishkan it was the width. In its length, but it's the width of the Mishkan. There was extra 1 amma on each side, right? Because the other one was 28. This was 30 in its length. So over the width of the Mishkan, it was an extra amma, which is extra 12 or whatever, 20. Again, over here we're doing 24 inches. It was extra 24 inches on each side of the Mishkan. 24 inches on each side. The Tzaf and Adon in the north and the south side of the Mishkan, the width of the Mishkan. And it covered the other curtains. So these cover the other curtains. So this was a second covering, the covering of the beautiful tapestries, and this was now the second covering, the covering of the goats here. Verse 14. Now we go to the third. This is a complicated argument, but we're going to go the simple way. Rashi. And that was the third beautiful tapestry. This covering. He shall make a covering for the tent of ram skins, dyed red, and covering of tachash skins above. So Rashi says, the roof of the goat hair curtain, make an additional covering of ram skins dyed red, and additionally, above it place a covering of tachash skin. These two coverings covered only the roof. That's what Rashi says. Only the roof. That's what I'm showing you. Some hold that it covered also the sides. Rashi says it only covered the roof. So machlekes argument in the Gemara, exactly if what it covered. Rashi says it only covered the roof. These two covers covered only the roof. Their length was 30 cubits and their width was 10 cubits. So we know the roof was 30 cubits by 10 cubits. These are Rabbi Nechemiah's words, but according to Rabbi Yehuda, there was only one covering, half of it made from ram skin, dyed red, and half was made of tachash skin. So there's an argument exactly how this was done. Was it mixed together, or was it made of two different things? So as this picture, you can have two different layers, or you can have it done into one covering. And that was the covering of the Mishkan that was in the desert. Tachash is the Rashi said previously, Tachash is the animal that had many colors. Many colors. Let me see if it's a better picture here. Different book. This is a beautiful picture here. So this is, okay, here you have a different picture. So this is one rabbi holds that it was two different coverings, one on top of the other. One was red, and that was a tachash, these beautiful colors. According to the other rabbi, it was actually, they were put together. So the tachash skins were together with the red dyed skins. So this is the izim, this is the covering of the goats here, and this is the covering that was on top, only on the roof. So this is the tachash skins, the beautiful many color skinned animal. That what Rashi says was, or some hold it would look like this. So it covered the whole Mishkan, red skins, and here's the tachash skin. So that's the machlekes, the argument. In the Gemara, Rashi goes with the ones who hold that it was only on the top, only on the roof. So really, you only saw the goat skins when you saw the goat here. When you saw the Mishkan, according to some, it was like this. So it's an argument in the Gemara. I mean, this is beautiful, but the question is what else? Again, somebody asked tachash. This is a tachash. It was an animal. This is a skin of an animal that had many colors. I don't know if this exactly are the colors that are here, but they have many colors.
I guess we'll have to wait and see.
I guess we will. No, we won't see this because this was only in the Mishkan.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So unless that we will see it anyway, but this was only in the Mishkan. It was not in the Beis Hamikdash. Okay, that completes the Chumash of the day. Very practical Chumash.
I have one question.
Yes.
My Chayenu says a talent. You said a talent, and mine says kikar. Is it the same?
Same thing. Kikar is a talent.
Okay, got it.
That's the English.
Okay.
Kikar is the verse says kikar.
Okay.
Okay, we will now question what is a kikar, and that's the problem. So
yeah, well,
so it's also not exactly clear. All these the dimensions. That's why there's the argument in the amma. What's an amma? There's the argument. I said it's between like 12 to 24. So there's an argument between 12 inches to 24 inches. And so too in a kikar, these are all Torah measurements. It's not exactly the measurements that we measure today. So it's not clear. There's many arguments exactly the number. So even though we said we did 64 pounds of gold, but it's not totally clear. There's those who was less, whatever. It's not clear exactly the measure, the Torah measurements. In general, as you go through and you'll learn a lot of Torah measurements and sizes, and it's Torah measurements. It's not per se today's measurements. Okay, Even today we have meters, we have feet, whatever.
Yeah.
Go crazy. Okay, let's go weiter. Let's go to the Tanya of the day. Wow, it's long chumash of the day. Let's go to the Tanya of the day. So the Alter Rebbe says, he's explaining to us, we're holding in chapter 30, the second part of this of chapter 30. The Alter Rebbe continues in that Beinoni should know that he has to humble himself for others, to realize that he cannot look at others to evaluate who he is. He has to evaluate himself, and he has to realize, he has to ask the question, is he having a war with his Yetzer Hara or not? And that's really the question every person needs to ask. And he has to humble himself. He has to look at somebody else that maybe he cannot handle it. But the way a person looks at himself is that every one of us can handle our struggles. And every one of us can overcome our struggles. The only thing we need to do is we need to have a milchama. We need to be able to go out to war with our struggles. We're not going to go out to war with our struggles. We'll never be able to overcome it. So let's go to the Tanya. And anyone who has not attained this standard. What is the standard? To wage a strenuous war against his guf. If you never went out to war, my friends, he has not yet measured up to the quality and dimension of war, which is waged daily within the Kal Shebekalim, against the evil nature. You don't know what somebody else is fighting about. You might have an easy life. You might not want to go out to war. So therefore, you don't know the challenges. And if you don't know what a challenge is, so you don't even know what another person is going through. You yourself need to go to a challenge. And if you haven't had a
No sound.
Hello, you hear me now? Hello? Am I back on? Okay, sorry. I don't know what happened. Okay, start again. Anyone who has not attained the standard of waging such a strenuous war against his body has not yet measured up to the quality of the dimension of the war waged daily within a Kal Shebekalim. The Alter Rebbe says that you might not realize what somebody else is going through. And even a tzaddik might not realize, a tzaddik might not realize what somebody else is going through. He might be judgmental and not realize that somebody else is having a major war. And that person is struggling. And if you haven't yet struggled, and if you're not a tzaddik, you haven't yet struggled, you don't know what it means to have a struggle. So you don't even know what that means, against the evil nature which burns like a fierce flame. So that this powerful impulse will be humbled. So this is then the standard which everyone must judge himself. Does he battle against his evil impulse? During prayer and similar in other areas of divine service, the Alter Rebbe will soon discuss. As intensely as a Kal Shebekalim means a simple Jew must battle against this. You think that the simple Jew that you're calling a simple person doesn't have his struggles? Everybody has their struggles. Maybe he's overcoming his struggles more than I am overcoming my struggles. Maybe, thank God, I don't have his struggles. So how can I judge somebody else? So it's not for one type of kavanah in saying grace after meals. So too in any kind of benediction or any mitzvah that I do with thought. So maybe I am worse than a sinner, because the sinner is maybe overcoming his struggles. I never had a struggle. I'm not even talking about doing a mitzvah for the sake of the mitzvah. Similarly, in regard to the battle required, the matter of one occupation of daily Torah study, one must struggle to study far more than is demanded by his innate or accustomed desire by means of a mighty battle with his body. So therefore, whatever I'll talk about myself, whatever I am used to doing, I might not have a struggle to wake up every morning and daven with a minyan. I might not have a struggle to learn Torah. These might come easily to me. I'm not fighting with my Yetzer Hara. And that shows that I haven't changed my nature. I'm basically doing things that I'm naturally known to do. So I'm worse than a sinner of a Jew who's struggling with, at least with his sins. While I am not even struggling with the good things that I do. I'm just basically doing things that are in my natural existence. So I never went to struggle to learn more. That's where you'll find your struggle. Maybe if you struggle, you'll understand. Maybe if I would struggle, I'll understand another Jew. I'll understand what it means to struggle. So I'm living in my little cocoon, and I'm just judging somebody else because I feel like my little cocoon is so great. But the truth is, it's not so great, because even though you're doing everything right, you never went out to war with my Yetzer Hara. You never went out to war with your evil inclination, because you never changed your own nature. And you're expecting that somebody else will change their nature. But I myself have never changed my own natural existence. I've been brought up a certain way. I've been taught a certain way. And I do things that's the way I was taught. Never went out to war with my own nature. Because when you study a little bit more than a little fraction, try to go and learn a little bit more. Try to pay a little bit better than what you're used to. Oh, that's a big war. You'll soon realize what it means to have a war. And that little war that I'm going to have with overcoming davening a little bit more or learning a little bit more is no comparison to the Jew who's really struggling doing a mitzvah, who's really struggling with his evil inclination. So I should be proud of a Jew that is struggling with his evil inclination, not put him down, not look down on him. I should thank God that I don't have such a Yetzer Hara. But the truth is, I'm not better than him. I'm worse. In which he's nonetheless called an utterly, if he does not conquer his impulse, his impulse, which he doesn't subdue and crush before God. So look at the box again. Similarly, unless one struggles with his evil impulse to study much more than his nature or habit demands, he is no less wicked than a wicked person. Whoa. But one may object to this reading. How one may say, can I, in all honesty, compare to my shortcomings to those of Kal Shebekalamin, those that are really low, I'm going to call them wicked people. Am I lacking merely in quality of good that I do, while he actually is actively violating prohibitions emanating in the Torah? So what do you say? Because I don't do more, I'm worse than a guy who does bad? Doesn't make any. How is that possible? What is the difference between the category turn away from evil, in which the culture count fails, the guy who's sinning fails? And what about the violation of doing good, in which he fails by neglecting and I don't? I'm learning Torah. I'm doing mitzvahs. So to be sure, there are differences between the two categories. Each has its own unique spiritual effect, its own specific intention, but these differences pertain only to the person performing the mitzvahs. The essential point of a mitzvah, however, is that it's expression of the will of God, And there's no difference between the two categories, whether it's doing good or not doing bad. Hakoli mitzvah melech, yachalim yuchah baruch hu. Each one of them are a commandment of God. So failing to observe a mitzvah of individual quality of prayer, Torah study, and so on, is therefore compared to transgressions of a culture of a kalim. So therefore, the Chaim Shah mitzvahs, befrat b'davar sheb'mal, so too in other commandments requiring a struggle, one may find that he does not wage a war adequately, against his evil impulse, especially in the matters involving money. Like the service of giving charity, some of his labor in the service of giving charity. It's not easy for us to give charity. Some of us are more easier in giving charity. So the Alter Rebbe says, ultimately, since the concept of the service of God, we're getting stuck in what we're doing and not doing. Doing and not doing is not what's important. It's serving God what's important. It's a service of God. A mitzvah is the service of God. An avera, not doing a sin, is a service of God. So therefore, my friends, the question is, he was serving God or not? And if a guy is doing everything in his natural phenomena, he's doing everything according to his nature, he is not serving God. While the guy who's struggling, and sometimes he fails, and sometimes he overcomes, is serving God. And that's why even every Jew has to be, that's how the Alter Rebbe, going back to the beginning of the chapter Tanya, where the Mishnah says, be a shval ruach n'tekol adam, be humble before all men, even before sinners. You don't know what that sinner is struggling. You don't know what he's overcoming. You don't know. You want to see his failures. You don't see the way he overcomes. Maybe he overcame a little bit his Yetzer Hara. You don't see his challenges. You surely don't see his inner struggles. He's a struggling Jew, a struggling human being. Sometimes he fails. Many times he's victorious. Well, you have not even gone to war. You haven't even started any war. You're just on easy street. The expression, you were born with a silver spoon in your mouth. So therefore, you don't understand his struggle. You never struggled. You're worse than him. Because he is serving God. He's struggling. Sometimes he fails. Sometimes he's successful. You have never struggled. So you never went out above your nature. You're living in your little cocoon. You're living in your comfort zone. Get out and struggle a little bit. Be like learn from the Kal Shebekalim. Learn from the wicked who struggle and overcomes their struggles. They're more successful than you, who never struggled maybe in your life. Living in a nice little comfortable world. Very interesting concept. And even the kind of turn away from evil, every thinking man can discover within himself that he's not completely, totally away from evil. He's not so holy. And he's not fighting even going away from evil. He likes evil a little bit. Okay, he's not doing evil. But does he like evil? Again, he's not struggling. The Eibishter, God, thank God, put him in a situation that he doesn't do evil for whatever reason. He's brought up that way. He's taught that way. He's afraid of his grandmother. Whatever the reason might be. It became his second nature. He should put down a Jew that is struggling. He should put down a Jew that might be sometimes sinning and Baruch Hashem sometimes not. He's a real Jew. That Jew struggling is the real Jew. You're just on easy street. And therefore, you should be humbled by that Jew. You should be inspired by the struggling Jew, the Alter Rebbe says. Let's continue this. Tanya, taking a little long. In a situation requiring a great battle, as I explained before, when you look at a Jew that's struggling, meaning the battle required by the Kalcha B'Kaleb, the battle that's required by you calling the simple Jew or the sinning Jew, or even a situation requiring a battle of the lesser magnitude. For example, you may find that he does not summon up the strength to stop in the middle of a pleasant gossip, or in the middle of relating a tale of discrediting his fellow. He thinks that that's it, but he can't overcome it. So you think you're not sinning. You think you have the battle. Even he ought to do, even if it's a very slight slur, or even if it be true, and even though his purpose in relating is to exonerate himself. As it brought down, we know in the Gemara, it's known that what Rav Shimon said to his father, Rabbeinu HaKadosh, concerning a problematic bill of the divorce that was improperly written. He says, I did not write it. Yehuda the tailor wrote it. He was a little bit disparaging against somebody else. Called him a tailor. Yehuda the tailor, Yehuda the shoemaker wrote it. With a slur of a minor one, the purpose of his self-vindication. And yet, he didn't say anything to him. He says, listen, I didn't write it. Some simple Jew wrote it. What do you expect? If Yehuda the tailor wrote it. If I would have written that I'm a rabbi, I'm the son of a rabbi, what do you want? The tailor wrote it. Well, Amalei. And his father said to him, Yehuda Nasi said to him, keep away from slander. What are you saying? You're slandering somebody else. It might be true, but you're saying it in a way just to protect yourself, and that is Lashon Hara. You're trying to say, oh, Yehuda the tailor. Yehuda the tailor might be a wonderful Jew. But it was basically saying it, oh, I didn't write it, Yehuda the tailor wrote it. That is what's wrong. Yehuda the tailor did write it. But Rabbi Yehuda Nasi said you have a little bit of slander in your voice. I detect from your expression that you're being slanderous. You're putting down another person to make yourself look better. Ukahai Gavna, that Alter Rebbe writes, this is the same applies with similar things which occur frequently. We all try to protect ourselves. We put down others to protect ourselves. We like to talk about the sins of others. Why? To protect ourselves. What are we gaining out of talking about the sins of others? We talk about the sins of others to protect ourselves. Oh, we're so holy. The truth is, maybe that person has challenges and he fell through some challenge. That's correct. But how many challenges did he didn't fall through? How many challenges did he overcome? So that's the cheshbon that Alter Rebbe says. Don't worry about somebody else. Be humbled by somebody else. Be humbled by another person, even by a person that's lower than you, that you think is lower than you, even you think that's a sinner, that he's wickeder than you, so to say. This is especially true in regard to sanctifying oneself by refraining from indulgence in permitted matters. Shuhu Midanaisa. Now the Rebbe says, I'm not telling you a rabbinical concept that a person should refrain in indulgence. That's what the Torah says. The Torah says, Kedoshim Tiyu, be holy. And our sages says, my friends, be holy means don't have such indulgence. Even though I've given you the right to have all these things, have self-control. How many of us fall in that? How many of us cannot control ourselves, even in the things that we are allowed, that we are self-indulgent, and we cannot control our tithes? How many of us? We all fall ourselves in. So forget about the prohibitions. I'm talking about things that you're allowed to. You think you're so special? Have a struggle in the things that you're allowed to do. Have a struggle. Try to stop it. See if you can. See if you can. You'll see how holy you are. So more so, even according to opinion, commandment is not a biblical one. Yet rabbinical enactment are very strict as a rabbinical Torah enactment. The Gemara says, you might say, oh, this is a rabbinical one. What's the difference? A rabbinical Torah by us? There's no difference whether it's a rabbinical law or Torah law, it's the same thing. All these similar matters are amongst these are sins that we trample with our feet, insensitive to their importance. We step in it, it's not important. Oh, it's important what that person did. It's not important to my sins. My sins are nothing in comparison to somebody else's sins. God nasik eheta, and that's why it becomes when I step on a sin, when I step on a mitzvah, I make it unimportant. When it comes to sins, it becomes permissible. Because you committed it or you've done it repeatedly. In truth, however, if he's a scholar, I'm talking to myself, if I'm a scholar, and I uphold God's Torah, and I wish the closeness of God, my friends, look in the mirror. His sins, again, not doing any sin, his sins, but that I'm not finding my Yetzirah, that I'm not going over my nature, that I'm not breaking myself. His sin is unbearable great, and his guilt is increased mindful for his not waging a war and not overcoming his impulse in a manner commensurated with the quality and nature of the war mentioned above by the Kal Shalkalama's face. You're no better than a sinner. And not only that, you're no better than a sinner, the Alter Rebbe says, his guilt is far greater than the guilt of a Kal Shalkalam, because he cannot overcome it, and you're not even challenging it. His sin is far greater than the guilt of a Kal Shabbat, more worthless of a street corner squatter who are remote from God and his Torah. Their guilt, you have to look at this follows. Their guilt is not summoning up the fear of God, who knows and sees all their action, in order to restrain their impulse, which burns like a fiery flame and is not heinous. But it's not as heinous as the guilt one who draws ever near to God, his Torah and his Torah. I'm so Talmud Chacham. I should be more ashamed of myself than a Jew that doesn't have that knowledge. If I'm so knowledgeable and I'm so holy and I'm not fighting against my evil impulse, so I am putting down a Jew that's not knowledgeable, that is not understanding, that never learned, is a Jew that never had an education. I'm going to be holier than him. Oh no, my friend, I'm not. Alter Rebbe proves it again. And our sages, blessed be, said the apostle Achar, who is Elisha ben Abihu, because he knew my glory. Why was God so angry at Achar? Achar was a sage, Elisha ben Abihu, who did terrible things, but God was really unhappy because he was a great sage. There were Jews in this time that did worse. They were not knowledgeable. He was a great sage. Listen to this statement, the Alter Rebbe says. Therefore, our sages declared in regard to an illiterate Jew, and that's why I'm supposed to look at another Jew when he does a sin that he's illiterate. He's not doing it intentionally, he's illiterate. That deliberate sins are regarded in their case as inadvertent acts, because they have no knowledge. They have never learned. They were never given the time to learn. But with a scholar, the reverse is true. An oversight due to a lack of study and adjustment as being grave as a deliberate sin. So the Gemara says that a Jew that has no knowledge, his act is his deliberate becomes an inadvertent act. A scholar, his inadvertent act is like a deliberate act. So therefore, if I think that I'm higher than another person, my friend, then you're putting your bar up very high. The Alter Rebbe says, if you think you're more knowledgeable and so holier than other people, then you're putting yourself in a dangerous situation. Because basically, when you do something negative, or you do something negative in your thought or your speech, or you think this negative thing is not so important, or you don't do something positive, you don't overcome your nature, then you're pretty bad. So therefore, the Alter Rebbe says in the beginning of this chapter, be humble. Be humble. Be non-judgmental. Be humble. Learn from everybody. Be inspired by everybody. That will break your heart. Seeing somebody else doing something negative, you should have a broken heart for that person, because that will break your heart. And that will give the light of God to be able to come into your own existence. Well, that finishes the Tanya of the day. Today is the fourth day of the month. My friends, it's the fourth day of the month, which starts on chapter 23 in Tehillim. 23 in Tehillim, and it goes till chapter 28. 23 to 28, and you would have done Chitas of the day. I wish you a wonderful day. In Mirchem tonight at 7:30, we have a class in Chumash, Sikh of the Rebbe, on the portion of the week. And if not, I'll see you tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock as we continue the Chitas of the day. Have a beautiful day.
Thank you very much, Rabbi.
God bless you.